Welcome everyone to the Bitcoin Student Network Virtual Summit and to this session on Bitcoin's culture and community. I am Kyle Knight, founder of the Bitcoin Culture Hub, where we're using Bitcoin's culture to accelerate retail and Gen Z Bitcoin adoption. And here with me is Matt Odell. Matt is a longtime Bitcoiner, educator, and community builder, a managing partner at 1031 VC, investing millions into Bitcoin-only projects. He supports the culture through OpenSats, Rabbit Hole Recap, Citadel Dispatch, the Bitcoin Policy Institute, and being co-founder of Bitcoin Park. Matt has spent years helping people understand Bitcoin, privacy, and self-sovereignty. So Matt, thank you for being here.
It's an honor and a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Kyle.
Right. So to kick us off, I'd love to start big picture and then bring it down to kind of what students and local communities can actually do. So first off, how do you define Bitcoin's culture?
Um, I think, as Bitcoin matures, there's a lot of different types of stakeholders, different users of Bitcoin. Um, and that it will only accelerate over time and expand over time. I mean, if we're correct and Bitcoin is the base of a global distributed financial network, then it stands to reason that billions of people will be using this thing and relying on this thing. And obviously, they will not all be aligned. I think the better question is, what is the foundation of Bitcoin culture in terms of early adopters? And I think that has the core of it is radical personal responsibility, and taking control of our lives into our own hands, and moving our communities forward. And I think it's imperative that we keep a strong base in that personal responsibility, because ultimately it's easy to think of Bitcoin as a tech movement. It's easy to think of it as a software project, which it is, but ultimately it's a movement of individuals, and individuals have to take personal responsibility in order for the system to function as designed.
And I'm going to bounce around here. Bitcoiners have talked about the need to not be apathetic, to be active participants in the network. Can you elaborate a bit more about how you feel and personal responsibility, how you live that out in your life, and believe over the next decade the importance of Bitcoiners who have been in the space for 5, 10 years now might need to continue being active participants?
I mean, I so there's two things here, right? Like the reason I'm optimistic on Bitcoin, and the reason why I've dedicated so much time to it, is because what the only assumption that the system really makes to function properly is that every participant will act in self-interest, which is important because if you have any other type of assumption, usually what happens is corruption starts to come into play, and that's where we've seen um, the loss of trust in the institutions that our society is based in, because those institutions require trust in the first place, and they require people to act with benevolence, and they have centralized individuals that are in control of them, and those people get corrupted. So that's why I'm optimistic on Bitcoin. Now, what I'm optimistic on humanity and people using Bitcoin as a tool, because it's a element for people to leverage personal responsibility to improve their own lives. And it comes from the core of this idea that I don't think anyone is coming to save us. I think if you actually want to improve your life, you have to actually take control of it in your own hands. And I think Bitcoin is a key tool there. Now, in terms of the importance of uh, people practicing that personal responsibility and taking ownership over their belief in the network and their support of the network, I think probably what we're looking at is some kind of intolerant minority. I think that's all that's necessary for the system to really survive and thrive. You can kind of think of Bitcoin's consensus mechanism as a Mexican standoff with everyone having guns pointed at each other. And the beautiful fundamental value prop is that it's incredibly hard to change by default. If you want to make any kind of significant change to Bitcoin, you need a overwhelming majority, which is really hard to measure. So if you have an intolerant minority that believes in Bitcoin as freedom money, that believes in radical personal responsibility, it's pretty hard for network changes that encroach on its ability to be used as a tool in such a way. So that's the key there. I think ultimately, I mean, there's a lot of egos in the space, but I will say personally, like I'd rather hand the torch to the next to the
Mm.
next generation. I think it's hard to be a public figure in Bitcoin and not absolutely lose your mind after five. I think I'm on the record like 3 years ago saying 5 years as a public figure, you either go crazy or you scam people or you get wrecked. And I'm right now, I think I'm at year 7. So I would rather hand the torch off. And fortunately, through groups like yourself, the youths are very enthusiastic and taking charge, which is really great to see.
And for those that don't know, Odell nuked his Twitter account a couple years ago. And that had what, 250,000 followers about?
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you think that, is in line with this thesis of you kind of wanting?
Yeah, I mean, the real context behind that is I didn't post to Twitter for 6 months, and my account just kept growing from past activity,
Yeah.
and it was growing crazy amounts still. So I thought I had to take more significant action, and the timing felt right. But yeah, I think, look, ultimately, like I don't want to be a figure that people look to make decisions. I want more people to take agency over their lives and make their own decisions. And I think it's most important if you're going to be critical of others, it's most important to be critical of yourself the most. And that just goes in line with radical personal responsibility. I think everyone's a little bit of a hypocrite, and it's important to be aware of that and try and reduce your hypocrisy in how you live your life. And it was getting to the point where I didn't really want to be an influencer. I don't want to be an influencer. I don't want my kids to grow up with an influencer father. And Twitter was my only social network, so that hadn't been nuked yet, so it got nuked.
It's transitioning. This is something I talk about quite a bit, where there's a lot of ways to get wealthy, right? And most of Bitcoiners or those around Bitcoin talk about price charts more than the community, the culture, the personal growth that Bitcoin drives from within. And I think that's Bitcoin's special sauce in this fireside chat, specifically diving into the culture and community angle. How do you explain when people say Bitcoin has no intrinsic value, and then Bitcoiners will often refer to the value is in the energy behind the miners and the network itself. The network is us, you and I, in that culture and community. How do you explain the role of our culture in Bitcoin's long-term success?
Well, I think I was fortunate to come out of college into Bitcoin, right? So my post-college years was just always dominated by Bitcoin, and my life has only been Bitcoin since then, which I think was really important for my own individual personal growth. Um, and so when I come at it from that perspective, I, most of my good friends are Bitcoiners. Then something crazy happened, right? So in 2020 and 2021, during the response to COVID, they locked everybody down. And but what we saw instead, oh, so let me go back real quick. So I grew up in my Bitcoin journey started online, but mostly matured in the New York City BitDevs community, which was the first BitDevs in the world. And that really shaped how I viewed Bitcoin and how I viewed my own life. Then 2020 comes around, 2021 comes around, and the response to COVID was to lock everyone down and say, don't meet in person. But with Bitcoin meetups, it was actually the opposite. Bitcoin meetups around the world started popping up, and more people were going to them. And that's when I became even more convinced that in-person connection was the single most important thing. Even outside of Bitcoin, just meeting people where they are, shaking their hands, looking them in the eye, is the single most important thing you can do to improve your community. And that's where Bitcoin Park got born in Nashville, where we wanted to supercharge that. We wanted to have an actual, 2 buildings that were dedicated to Bitcoin, dedicated to community development, dedicated to education. And that just accelerated everything, specifically in the Nashville area, because we saw people of all walks of life come in, older people, farm owners, store owners, plumbers, young people from the local colleges, Vanderbilt and Belmont, And I think when you meet people where they are and neighbors are helping neighbors, that's when you start to see society really flourish. And Bitcoin is a key tool there. But I think it's also important that we don't get so narrow-minded that we think Bitcoin fixes everything and that Bitcoin is the only tool. It just enables us to accomplish goals that were otherwise not possible through community development, through helping neighbors and them helping you back.
It's funny, I wonder when it comes to adoption percentages, a lot of people discover Bitcoin through the online or digital realm, but I would argue, many more of those discovered through that word of mouth aspect and through a friend, through, a physical being. And so for adoption, the importance of our local meetups and the student clubs, and talking over, about Thanksgiving at the Thanksgiving table, is critical if you're a curious Bitcoiner and, you know, have the
Yeah,
desire.
I think the diehards are online in on Twitter and on Nostr and on the forums and Reddit and stuff. Reddit was big when I was getting started, and so was Bitcoin Talk. Um, but the masses, they're like it's 10x, 20x offline, and you can tell because pretty much anyone who's like really dialed in on online, they know they're their Bitcoin guy in their local community, whatever it is, their college friends, their high school friends, their neighbors, like they're the Bitcoin guy, right? Like when they hear anything related to crypto, they reach out to you for a question. Those people aren't in the online community. So each person that's online, maybe they have, 10, 20, depending on how social they are, touch points offline. And I'll tell you, people are I if you have someone that you trust, that you personally know, it's a way more comfortable entrance into something like Bitcoin because Bitcoin is a radical change from how the rest of society functions. Most of society does not have any personal responsibility. Most of society is like bumpers at a pool hall, right? Not a pool hall, at a bowling place. And they have padded walls and they make sure that they make every decision for you and you don't really have much agency over your life. So for people to flip that switch, it's really important that they have a guiding hand, that they have someone they can trust, that they actually can see in person and have conversations with.
Yeah, fully agreed. And, you know, I could talk about this forever, but given the time of the panel, I do want to ask the call to action. So for Gen Z and community builders around the world, for looking forward 2026 and beyond, what would you be asking these people who are either new to building community or are passionate about Bitcoin and desiring to build Bitcoin's culture and community up? What would you ask them, challenge them to do?
I would say first and foremost, go to your local meetup. I can be very intimidating in the beginning. Like I said, I was very fortunate uh, that I got involved with the local New York City Bitcoin scene very early. It really helped, and I would be lying if it's hard for me to remember back to the first couple, but I'm pretty sure I was overwhelmed about going. I mean, at that point, I was an anon online, just getting into this magic internet money thing. So first of all, go to your local meetup, and if you don't have one, consider starting one, and don't overwhelm yourself. Like it can just be meeting up at a local cafe, right? It could be 5 people, it could be 4 people. That's where the seed starts. That's where it all begins. And then the second thing I would say is, there's a lot of people that are trying to do what other people are doing. Think about what's not out there, and then just be the change you want to see in the world. Start trying to do that thing, and maybe you won't be good at it at first, but practice makes perfect, and mistakes are the best teacher. So try and scratch your own itch. And I guess I said that was the last thing, but the last thing is, look, there's a lot of distractions with the publicly traded Bitcoin companies, with the treasury strategies, with all this stuff. I would uh, I would tell people to try and focus on where the true power lies, which is real Bitcoin, self-custody Bitcoin, using it as freedom money, being able to spend and save without permission. And as they say on the airplanes, like you put your mask on first. Like you get used to the tools, you get comfortable with the tools before you start trying to help others. I know everyone wants to help others. There's a lot of people out there that want to help others, but take care of yourself first, and then the rest will come.
I love that. At UCLA, I had some people say there's not a lot to do in Bitcoin, and I would entirely disagree. Everything that there is in fiat, there is to do in Bitcoin. So if there's any passions or hobbies of yours, bring that over to Bitcoin, embrace your unique self and fully adopt this orange world. But Matt, thank you very much for your contributions to the Bitcoin Student Network Virtual Summit. Where can people reach you and find you?
My contact information is at my personal website, odell.xyz. And you can find me on Nostr, primal.net/Odell.
Amazing. All right, everyone, enjoy the rest of your panel or summit, and looking forward to seeing you soon.